Yes, this is where I work at the University of Gothenburg in a department called Applied Information Technology. And over the years, most of my time, most of my effort has been devoted on studying citizen science. That's why uh, I will talk a little bit about it today, especially in science, but also in innovation. And this is also the reason why I've been invited, thank you very much, to this interesting forum. But I'm also very interested in the relationship between science and policy. So, working at the science policy interface, as they call it. So, in order to see to what extent we can use evidence generated by scientists for policy. But then we see that over the years, the citizen, at least the European Commission, has been interested also in the evidence generated by citizens for policy reasons. Today, what I'm going to talk about, I'm always a little bit worried that you see my screen, right? I confirm. Can you? Okay.
I
So
can confirm it's fine.
good, very good. Thank you very much. So this is what I will try to address today very briefly. But I will discuss whether citizen science is an approach that can be useful to strengthen a positive relationship between science and society, and also helpful to build a more trustful relationship. In the end, I will also say something about the use of machine learning in citizen science projects. This is a little study that I conducted recently. The use of machine learning and whether this technology challenges distribution of epistemic authority in citizen science with implication for public trust. So you gave us a definition of trust, Gunther. I guess that probably other definitions are possible. Anyway, here one question that we need to ask is the public distrust of science growing? Of course, it is a truism, say that people will trust the science if they trust the scientists. It's a truism. The problem is that it seems that there is a credibility crisis. A credibility crisis concerning the trustworthiness of science and the findings of scientists. These issues gain attention in recent years for different reasons. Reproducibility, publication bias, conflict of interest, misconduct, the list is long. And if you think about the recent state of public debate over scientific controversies like climate change, vaccination, and so on, all controversies that require political decision, this situation has not helped. And many people are confused about the positions, the very conflicting positions that many times scientists have in relation to these complex phenomena. So, what kind of public trust do we want to promote and how? We rely on a standard account of science which creates a strict division of labor between public and scientist. There is the public discourse on one side, and there is the scientific reasoning on the other side. In the past, there was a physicist called Arthur Kantrowitz, which proposed an adversarial institution called the science court. Maybe some people in the audience know about it. During the science court, scientists only were there to air opposing viewpoints before an independent, supposedly neutral, and technically competent panel of scientists. Citizens were not there, they were not expected to interact in any way with the expertise of scientists. And the idea was that they had to trust. They had to trust what scientists were saying there. what is a big problem here? Obviously, science. The science court is a possible channel of accountability of scientists, but and also it could make public the decisions. In that sense, it is a channel of accountability, because scientists make public their decisions or their reasoning, their results. But it may not be that effective, because citizens probably don't have the knowledge of the evidence grounding policy decisions. They don't have the knowledge of what scientists do. And if scientists are aware of this lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, obviously citizens are not, their involvement is considered completely useless. So here we propose another approach. It's nothing new. It's been already on for several years now. Is citizen science another way of building trustful relationships? I'm not saying that it is. It's just a question. Actually, it's a controversial issue in itself. But this is what we are trying to explore a little bit today. First of all, a definition for those who are not very familiar with citizen science. There are several definitions. I give you one, which I took from a document of the European Commission. So citizen science as the involvement of non-professional people, like volunteers in the scientific process. Most of the time they are involved for collecting data, but they can be involved also for other tasks, other activities, such as data analysis and interpretation. And here I give you an example. Again, if you are not familiar with citizen science and you wonder, what are they doing? They can do many things. They can count animal species, they can count insects, they can measure air quality, they contribute to astronomical observations. Actually, many projects take place in policy-relevant areas, such as environmental protection, because in those areas, bottom-up initiatives can help closing knowledge gaps. A good example is marine citizen science, where people with different levels of expertise and knowledge about marine environment, they collaborate with professional scientists to study marine and coastal environments. And they gather empirical data, and sometimes they also analyze data to generate knowledge about marine environment. It must be said, this is an environment which can be, this is a field, the marine citizen science, that can be particularly data intensive. And so the scientists put together very large data sets, and they can use machine learning to manage to classify all these materials. And I give you an example here. The Coastal Seafloor Observatory is a project that I know better than others, because it is ongoing here in Sweden on the west coast. The Coastal Seafloor Observatory is a project investigating marine biodiversity, and they do so by analyzing deep water recordings from the Koster National Park on the west coast of Sweden. So scientists use remotely operated vehicles to record deep water videos, and they produce very large amount of large amount of underwater movies and images for classification of marine fauna. And because of this large amount of material, they invite the citizens to help train their object detection models, and so they can also learn more about the animal dwellings on the seafloor. Question 2. Can citizen science help increase trust in science? Well, first of all, there is a polarization in our society, and not just in politics, but there is a polarization in science too. And we may want to ask ourselves whether citizen science can help break this polarization. And the polarization is between science and people, so to speak. So scientists have their expert knowledge, while people have their experiential knowledge. For example, they have their local knowledge, knowledge of the environment, the context in which they live. On one side, scientists rely traditionally on epistemic trust, which means, right, the knowledge based on facts or based on data that they obtained by using certain standardized methods. On the other side, there are people who they trust things not only on the basis of knowledge, but also on the basis of emotion. And this is a very important point that probably the science court failed to deliver, because relied entirely on epistemic trust and the standardized methods that scientists use to collect data and generate knowledge. But when it comes to citizen science, we need to consider that engagement of people does not rely only and exclusively on the ability of creating knowledge and creating knowledge, collecting data for knowledge. But it is also characterized by other super important dimensions, like affective, social, behavioral, motivational dimensions. This is very important. Why? Because citizens are involved in data collection most of the time that occur in their local contexts, like, for example, in the case of the Coster Seafloor Observatory, about issues that matter to them, like the sea in the place where I live is polluted, the air that I breathe is polluted, something like that. So emotions, not just the need to know something, but also emotions can play a significant role in shaping how people engage with and respond to the world around them. This is very important. Then the question you might ask is, well, where is the reliability then of using citizen science data collected by untrained people who are motivated by emotions, right, rather than a genuine or exclusive need to know something? It's difficult to respond to this question. The reliability of citizen-generated data is constantly a problem, something that is questioned over and over. But I just give you a positive example. It's not the only one. I could have also tried to find a negative example. So I'm biased here. Anyway, I wanted to bring with me a positive example here. The example refers to a study conducted by researchers where they measured whether the perceptions of water quality among ordinary citizens was reliable if compared to the data collected by scientists using standardized methods, scientific instruments, in relation to the same areas, to the same coastal environment. And what they found out, what the researchers found out, was that the citizen science can be a reliable source for researchers, because people gave lower water quality scores in the same places where water quality was considered poor according to measurements done with standard instruments. And they also gave higher scores where water quality was higher, also according to the data collected by scientists. Then the same researchers who conducted this study also noticed, anyway, they didn't deny the fact that aspects like age, gender, or level of education can have an influence on how people collect the data. This is something that they admitted. So, and they also, they didn't put into question anyway the fact that psychological, ecological, social and political awareness may also affect the reliability of the data collected by volunteers, especially when the people are involved in projects related to their local environment. This is the last point. How does AI influence the relationships between citizens and experts in citizen science? Here I refer to the little study I've done. It has been published, and it was published, I don't know, last year probably. I think that things are changing as I speak. So since the pace of the development of AI is so accelerated, and the projects also change. But anyway, this is just to give you an idea. So I conducted qualitative content analysis of documents reporting the results of a small sample of projects, citizen science projects, that use machine learning to optimize classification tasks. I examined the distribution of tasks between citizen scientists, experts, and algorithms. What we could see is that citizens and experts in these classification projects are already affected differently by the use of machine learning. What does it mean? It means that both the citizens and machine already do the same things. They classify artifacts like images, audio, files about audio, sound, and other artifacts that are collected during data collection. What we see is that there is a trend towards task polarization, once again, with citizens performing well-structured and low-complexity tasks requiring primarily common skills, and experts performing well-structured and higher level of complexity tasks requiring training and specialization. Both the citizens and machine learning technologies are assigned tasks with a lower level of complexity. Lower level of complexity here refers to the level of interdependence. Let's say that the simpler the task, the lower the level of interdependence. Like citizen scientists who annotate galaxies in Galaxy Zoo. You can annotate millions of images, if you manage, by yourself without interacting with anyone else. You can do it in parallel with many other citizen scientists, and machines do exactly the same. While, for example, for experts it's different, because if they validate classifications or if they develop a gold standard data set, they need usually to interact with other scientists or other experts, and they really build things by collaborating with each other. So I said I can see another trend toward the polarization, where, let's say, we're based a little bit on the introduction of machine learning in the project. But it's, again, a question mark. Are we going towards task polarization and even less inclusive citizen science? I said even less because even citizen science is not very much inclusive. Not everyone participates. Mostly people are white, well-educated, male, good income, so there is a risk, as somebody has already noted, and I quoted here, that citizen science becomes even less inclusive by focusing primarily on expert volunteers rather than the general public, let's say. If the work is limited in volume or requires additional knowledge and resources that pose barriers for crowd participants. And this limitation in volume or requiring additional knowledge might be a consequence of the use of machine learning, able to do a lot of what citizens have done so far. I have only a couple of considerations to make before finishing. I would like to conclude here by saying that values play a crucial role in science, and not just the ability of generating reliable knowledge. Scientific competence is not the only competence that matters. This is one of my arguments, and I suppose that a lot of people may completely disagree with me, and it's fine. So I think here that the ability to articulate and to take into account different social interests and to deliberate about the common good also matters. This is a reason why it's important to include a wide group of people from different walks of life, and especially from underrepresented areas of society. And I think that decision-making bodies that include the citizens are likely to do better in this sense than those that exclude them. So I would like to conclude by saying that by promoting people's engagement in citizen science, which include also those cognitive, affective, social dimensions that I was mentioning before, we can probably begin to break what I consider the populist good use of human emotions. Think about all the campaigns about no vaccination that I see in several countries, and often underlying a deep distrust in science. And with this, I conclude my presentation. It's 22 minutes, so I manage. Thank you very much for listening.